I'm Tracy Grimshaw. Welcome to A Current Affair. If your home was built on a former gold mine, you'd probably hope for the odd nugget or two hidden in the soil. But these families say their land is worthless, even dangerous, after finding it's riddled with arsenic.
You don't expect to buy a home and then find out 16 years later that you've been potentially exposed to contaminants that can cause cancer.
It's like a jail sentence. It's like you're locked in, you're stuck, you can't do anything.
Poisoned by their own homes and powerless to stop it.
People had to move out. I don't think that's good enough.
And it's been a nightmare.
I mean, just disgusted, really.
Now the residents of what's been labelled Arsenic Avenue are demanding answers.
We're basically left with an unsellable home.
Yeah, something's got to be done.
Authorities have just attempted to sweep this all under the rug.
Melbourne's northwest is filled with young families and retirees. Developments in Diamond Creek have been popping up at a rapid rate. But this is no normal building site. In fact, it's been hiding a sickening secret.
This has been, I'd say, the worst experience that we've had in our lives, in all honesty.
Right now, all Kim Murdoch can do with her home of 16 years is look at it. After the place was flooded in 2017, the insurer discovered it was riddled with arsenic inside and outside. She and her young family have now been forced out of their home because it's been poisoning them.
This is just unheard of for a child in Australia to be affected by arsenic contamination.
Their suffering stems back to this abandoned gold mine, the soils of which often contain higher concentrations of arsenic.
Can I use the word negligent?
Greg and Leanne Atten have lived here for 21 years. They've even raised their kids in this house that backs onto the mine.
No, going right down stairways.
A few years ago, the land was acquired by a developer. Recent works have seen dust and contaminated water running right into their property.
There's an inch of water, mud everywhere.
So if you look at how ingestion happens, it has to go in the mouth, right? And when you've got your kitchen table covered in potentially arsenic-ridden dust, it creates an issue.
We were just coated and covered, and there is footage we have showing that you can barely see our house through the dust.
They're exposed over a really long period of time. It's carcinogenic.
Children are the most vulnerable to arsenic poisoning, according to environmental toxicologist from RMIT, Susie Reichman.
In the short term, they might have impacts on things like their liver functioning, and then in the long term, if their exposure isn't reduced down to safe concentrations, they may have increased chance of getting a number of cancers, including skin cancer and bladder cancer.
Under 100 is within normal range for kids. In a recent test, Kim's 2-year-old had a reading of 474, her 4-year-old 143.
Furious. We're really worried about our kids and what the future holds for them, and, you know, any possible sicknesses that could come up.
Potentially hundreds of families in the area may have been affected. So how are authorities dealing with it? Locals have been told to shut their doors and windows, wash their pets often, and even that letting their kids play outside may be putting them in danger.
It's an unrealistic thing to say kids can't play in a backyard.
It's appalling, especially for the children.
It's become a bit of a joke, really.
Lawyer Fiona Rothfield from Gordon Legal.
Well, it appears that at least 3 government agencies have known about arsenic contamination at the site and the potential for arsenic contamination in nearby properties for near on 20 years now.
I'm disgusted with the EPA who are there. They're an environmental protection authority. They're there for a reason. They're supposed to be protecting people.
And the EPA isn't doing much to allay residents' fears. They're even refusing to test some homes, leaving many residents in limbo.
I've got my granddaughter. I mind her. I'm too scared to take her out in my yard now because I don't know if there's any arsenic on my property until I get tested.
That's not good enough. It's not good enough, not for my family.
Residents tell us the Nillumbik Shire Council have known about the issue for years but never warned them.
Yeah, we've got a property that who would want to buy our house.
The EPA has informed property owners that they could sell their properties and not disclose to future owners the risks of arsenic contamination.
These homeowners wouldn't dream of putting another family through that pain.
At the end of the day, we have to live and put up with what's here, because who else would want to buy this?
The EPA says they sent a letter to council 18 years ago saying they believed information on the contamination needed to be communicated to landowners, and claim they've not seen any evidence of arsenic poisoning in Diamond Creek.
Upset and frustrated. Who were they actually protecting?
The council tells us the developer was required to do an environmental audit to ensure the land's safe, and this has now been done and passed to the EPA for acceptance. These residents refuse to be victims and are working towards a class action.
We will be investigating whether or not the residents can seek compensation for the loss of value to their properties as a result of arsenic contamination that they weren't aware of.
They don't understand, they don't really care, because they're not here living it. We live, eat and breathe it 24/7.
Nillumbik Shire Council and the Environment Protection Authority are working with residents to ensure their properties are safe to live in. You can read the full statements on our homepage. It's hard to believe anyone survived this highway accident, but what's more shocking than the crash itself is who was driving the car that caused it.